All right, I guess I'm live here. Let me see. Let me pinch myself. Yeah, I'm live. Well, I think what I'm going to do today is talk about the masses. I was thinking about that the other day. The masses of people, and there's just so many different variants on the masses out there, and the mentality, and the consciousness, and the political bent and the societal bent, and because what got me to thinking about this is I saw this meme, and it said something about those who are condemned to forget history end up liberals, and I was thinking, yeah, that's right on. And not that I'm trying to label people as bad. But here's the deal. When I was younger in the 60s, 70s, liberals were a good thing, kind of, sort of. They cared about, let's say, the welfare of people more. They were liberal thinking, but that didn't include the agenda that liberals have today. Seems like today it's changed 180 degrees. Yes, Republicans were always for things like, pro-gun, but the liberals weren't that against it either. I mean, it wasn't like, back in the early days of the Democrats or the liberals, and I guess you can, throw those into the same mix back then. Now today, it's anybody's guess, who's who and what's what and what this person believes and what that person believes. But you got so many factions out there in the masses, okay? That's incredibly confusing to the normal layperson. They don't know what the hell's going on. They have no idea because there's too many groups of people, okay? So in these masses, okay, well, let's talk about, the definition of, patriots, okay? Just for starters. Patriots, there's 2 kinds, if you ask me. There's the kind that is, a jingoist, and a jingoist is defined as somebody that's a fanatic about their country, flag waving, "My country, right or wrong," apple pie mom, love it or leave it, if you don't like it, get the hell out, that's a jingoist, and then okay, so that's one type of patriot, and I don't even know if I'd call that a patriot. And then the other type is, somebody that is, for the Constitution, okay, for the Bill of Rights, for the Constitution. And that kind of person, to me, is more of a true patriot, okay? Now we get into the areas of liberal and conservative and neoconservative, neo meaning new, new conservative. We get into these things, and it all becomes rather murky, okay, because you don't know where these different people are coming from. So you got people that are supposedly Democrats that are neocons. Okay, go figure that one out. How can you be a Democrat that's supposed to be a liberal and yet be a neoconservative? Okay, then you got uh, then you got Republicans. In Congress that are warmongers, but they're also like crossing over to the left on some issues. Okay. And especially since Trump took office. Trump took office, and you got a lot in his own party that crossed over to the other side as far as like not liking or hating Trump. I can't think of too many people that are on the Trump bandwagon from the Democrats, and there's, as far as the Republicans, there's a lot that aren't. There's a lot that don't back him, and then there's this this interesting, what do I want to call it? Confusion or interesting take, okay, that I'm getting off of what's going on as far as the Republicans not backing their man, and the phenomena, that's the word I was looking for, this interesting phenomena of a president being elected to office and having people come down on him so hard. Now, am I for Trump or against Trump? Like I said, I'm not political. I just watch what's happening. But it is a phenomenon that people are, there's so many people. I mean, let's say, okay, I get the Trump news on Google. Okay. I just put in Trump and then they send me all the news about Trump. And I get that news and I go down the list here: CNN's, CBS, Washington Post, New York Times, this magazine, that magazine. As you go down the list, okay, not one friggin' article is for Trump. It's always Trump did this and Stormy Daniels and blah blah blah, and was Trump caught in a lie? And I'm telling you, the whole friggin' news that's sent me, and I might get like 20 news pieces. Not one of them, maybe one, uh, says anything positive about Trump. Have you ever seen anything like this before? I mean, usually a president comes in, and what happens is people are upset for a while because their candidate didn't win. But then after a month or two, everybody gets behind the president. This is not what's happening here. And why isn't this happening? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the main scum media uh, propagates hate, okay? And obviously, as I just mentioned here, and guess what? People pick up on that. They pick up on it and they don't do a damn thing about it. I mean, all they do is they follow the official line, okay? Which is something that the media comes out with. They always parrot the official line, okay? So I know I'm getting off on kind of off on a tangent here, but this is what I'm talking about when I say the masses, okay? Because the masses are controlled. For the most part, the masses are controlled by this constant barrage, okay, of negativity, okay? And it's not just in politics, although it seems to be, it seems to be stronger there lately. So we've talked about the masses, and then you got the political. Okay, so you got the New Patriots, you got the Christian patriots. Then you got people that are for the Constitution on both sides. On both sides, not very many though on the liberal side. Not very many people. They're pretty much hung up with the propaganda. Okay, now as far as masses go, then you got people with different conscious levels. Okay, people with different consciousness. Okay, and that basically amounts to where your frequency is. Okay, how well you see things. Do you see the big picture, or do you just see with a narrow viewpoint as to what's going on? Do you explore things? Are you open-minded? Uh, so then we have these tiers. Okay, we have these tiers where, and tiers I mean TIERS, levels. Okay, And it seems like the more people are open-minded, okay, the more that people, are able to look at, let's say, both sides of a situation and, think with a lucid mind, the more people that are that way are the ones that are, I would say, on the road to enlightenment, okay? Maybe they're, at a certain level on that road, and, they haven't got way, way up there to the frequencies of, let's say, nirvana or, enlightenment or, that type thing. So they're not way up there because they haven't got there yet, but they might be on one of those tiers, okay, where they're at least open-minded, okay, and, so they're not so much, affected by, let's say, the propaganda from the mainstream media, okay? If you're open-minded or, and let's throw a little bit of intelligence in there too. Let's throw some intellect in there. So if you're open-minded and you're, somewhat of an intellectual, um, then you're gonna try to look at the big picture, okay? You're gonna try to look at the big picture. And, so if you look at the big picture, okay, then your mind is, in that state, okay, where you are, looking at balance, you're looking at maybe both sides of an issue, um, the pros and cons on both sides of an issue. Um, so then when you're in that state of mind, you're not so susceptible to the propaganda because you might be watching CNN or MSNBC or CBS or one of these mainstream media outlets, or you might be watching, I mean, reading the Washington Post or the New York Times or whatever, and if you're awake, okay, if you're aware, rather than just reading it and taking it for face value, you might read it and go, well, wait a minute here. This media outlet and this media outlet and this media outlet and this uh, CNN and MSNBC and USA Today newspaper and this and this and this and that. They're all parroting the same thing. They're all talking about the same thing. So then you're going to start wondering if you are an intellectual and you do have somewhat of a thinking capability, then you're going to start saying, well, wait a minute, why is this all one-sided here? Why is this all basically saying the same thing, repeating the same thing like a tape loop? Why are all these outlets doing this? Well, then you're going to realize that the reason that they're doing it is because they're all hooked to one main source, okay? And that main source would be probably the deep state and those that control the elite money people that control the corporations, they control the media, they control, uh, a lot of the internet. They control Google, they control YouTube, they control Facebook, they control LinkedIn, they control every freaking one of these outlets, okay? So again, if you're of that mentality, where you have some enlightenment and you have some intellect, then you're gonna look at this stuff, okay? And not only that, but you're gonna look at, what the masses are doing, okay? You're gonna look at what the masses are doing. What are the masses doing? What's going on in our society? What's going on in the USA, where we live? What are people doing? What do you hear about? So then you hear about, if you take a very clear look at things, you start hearing about protests. You start hearing about movements. You start hearing about um, things like the gun control debate. the border debate, the illegal alien debate, all of these different things that people are talking about, okay? And you start seeing factions arising, okay, on different sides. And if you're really on top of it, if you're really researching things and looking into things, then you start seeing, oh, before I do that, let's not forget that the peace and war and the going into other nations and sovereign nations and what our military industrial complex is doing. But as you look at these different factions or these different situations that are rising, you see opposition. Okay, you see opposing points of view, and these opposing points of view are not just um, things that seem to be debatable. They're more or less solidified on each side. Okay, and that's something I haven't seen in a long time either. Okay, is this civil war, and people mention that all the time. This civil war mentality, this us against them, brother against brother type thing. So we're seeing that, okay, we're seeing that, and so if you're in the masses and you're, but you're not, I mean, you're outside and you're looking at all this stuff, you're seeing that there's a definite thrust, okay, by these mainstream media people, by the uh, NGOs, okay, non-governmental organizations, that sprout up in other countries too, backed by people like George Soros, and that name keeps coming up. He's kind of the poster boy for deceit and dark ventures and propagation of lies and supporting protest groups. So he's in this faction that some people call liberals or the new political thinkers or the people that want to give their power away to certain organizations, certain the government. Okay, so you got people with a vested interest, okay, backing protesters, okay, funding protesters to the point of where they're becoming violent. And I'm talking about groups like Antifa on the left. But then you might say, well, hey, what about on the right? What about those people, the skinheads and the Nazis and blah, blah, blah? Well, let's put this into perspective. The KKK and the rednecks in the South, and they've always been there. They've always been there. They've always had their little marches. And they basically, after a certain era, became pretty much harmless. So the people on the left, the new thinkers, all of a sudden say, these people are part of, they hook it up. Okay. Somehow they hooked it up with the president that's in office now. They hooked it up with him and tried to make him look like he was supporting the KKK and was guilty of being a skinhead and all this stuff that they keep laying on us about Trump. Okay, so you got the two factions here, and I'm talking about factions now. Okay, I'm talking about the liberal faction and the conservative faction. But see, it's not liberal and conservative, really. Uh, it's more just factions, okay? And it's more just the masses, okay, that are influenced by certain factions or people that support certain factions. So again, it's become a divisive, the masses are becoming divided. Okay. Now, here's another thing about the masses, as long as I'm talking about the masses, the ones that are divided, the ones that aren't looking at the big picture, the ones that don't have that degree of enlightenment or that degree of intellect that I'm talking about, and this is their own fault. They could fix this, okay? But the ones that don't have that, they're easily swayed. Okay, they're easily swayed, and a lot of these people are swayed by knee-jerk reactions to emotional events that happen around them. And usually these emotional events like 9/11 were orchestrated by these elite deep state people to complete an agenda. And these people that buy into this stuff or buy into the official story, like the JFK official line about Oswald and all that stuff, these people that have a tendency to buy into this over and over and over and never look beyond their nose, it's like they're drinking Kool-Aid. Okay. It's like they're drinking some kind of drug. Okay. And they just can't quite comprehend. Hello, somebody came on chat. Two people. Wow. Uh, they can't quite comprehend things. Okay. They can't quite get a grasp on reality, on truth, on looking for truth. You know, and when you're looking for truth, basically what it's about is catching people in lies. Okay, so when I was talking about having a little bit of intellect and a little bit of enlightenment, one of these things is knowing how to detect, having a bullshit detector. Okay, and knowing when people are lying and looking beyond what the headlines say, okay, and looking at people who might be being used, like this hog character that popped up out of nowhere from the supposedly the kids that are worried about guns. Okay, well, this hog character to me, if you ask me, looks like a midget. He looks like some kind of actor or something. It's bizarre. Um, And here's the thing that you don't hear about, like, you hear about all these kids, that did a walkout, for, gun control and, demanding this and that, but did you hear about this? Did you hear 2, 3 days ago or 4 days ago? I forget when it was. Did you hear about all the kids in 40 states, 40, and some of them in large numbers? Did you hear about them walking out to support the Second Amendment? Did you hear that? Oh, gee, I didn't hear about that one. Well, I wonder why. Well, that's because the mainstream media and the newspapers and any of them, they didn't cover it. You didn't even hear a whisper about it. Okay. So, what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the media? What are they afraid of? Okay. What are they afraid of? Are they afraid that you're going to start thinking for yourself? Are they afraid that you might put two and two together? Are they afraid that you might see that there's a lot of people out there that aren't in agreement with the parroting of the mainstream media and the George Soroses and the libtards? That's a cute little term somebody came up with about liberal retards. Now, again, I'm not saying, okay, I'm not saying because I use those terms, I'm not saying that I hate all liberals, but they have taken that name on themselves. Okay, they've taken that name on themselves. Most of these people that can't think, most of these people that can't think straight are associated with that. Now, I know you can't group all these people, again, we're talking about the masses, and if you listen to the first part of this video, it's hard to determine what's what, okay? It's hard to determine because you got people probably that are, might be, considered liberal, but they're pro-gun, okay? Or you got people that are, Republican that are not so pro-gun, you know? I mean, there's a blurring of lines here. There's a blurring of lines. So what's my point in talking about the masses here? What's my point in talking about all these people out there? Well, my point is is that most of the people out there, excuse me, most of the people are brain dead to a certain degree, or they're not thinking, or they're not to that point of intellectual capacity or enlightenment to where they can kind of see the big picture and kind of see where all this is going. So for those of us who can, okay, for those of us who does have a slight degree of intellect and a slight degree of enlightenment, it's really hard, okay, because what you're doing here is you're looking at history, okay, and you're trying to figure out, well, geez, you know, I look back, and this is again having a degree of intellect and a degree of enlightenment. I'm looking back at history, and I'm seeing things that happen in history as far as firearms and people being armed. In other words, civilizations or nations, and you look back and you see what happened back there to the people that, let's say, had all their weapons taken away. And you can look right here in the first part of the history of America with the Native Americans. That's history, but you can look a lot of other different places in China and in the Middle East, and where people got their right to protect themselves taken away. What happened? Well, they got subjugated. They got put into concentration camps. They got murdered, okay, because they didn't stand up for and they didn't see the encroachment, okay, upon their civil rights. And it it starts in all kinds of different areas. It starts with could be gun control, it could be speech control. You're not allowed to say this, or you're not allowed to talk against the Fuhrer, okay, or you're not allowed to express a free opinion. Um, and what do we see in some of these areas, like where people go to, let's say, a political convention and they want to make a protest? What do you see? Well, this is a protest area. This is a, you can only protest in this certain area. And they have a little fenced off place in there where nobody's going to friggin' see them. Okay. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about with the encroachment in all kinds of different areas, not just the weapons area or defending yourself, but in being able to speak, okay? Being able to speak. And then you see this, you see it on YouTube with people going down on YouTube. You see it on Google. You see the control, the censorship slowly creeping in here, slowly creeping in. Just like in a communist state, okay, or just like in a fascist state. So what are the masses doing? What are the masses of people doing? Are they being led like sheep to the slaughter? Are they awake and going, wait a minute here, there's something wrong here. I don't know if I want to believe all the propaganda that's being spewed out here. I don't know if I want my thoughts shaped, okay, by these people that seem to want to shape my thoughts, that seem to want to force an agenda on me. So this is what I'm talking about, and so I'm talking to you, I'm talking to the masses out there. And what I'm saying is, if you're listening to this video, it's time for you to take everything that I have said into consideration and to consider whether you're in that group of people that's non-enlightened and non-intellectual and not able to think out things reasonably on both sides of the issue and weigh it out, to look at agendas, to gather intel, to gather information, to research, instead of just being reeled in like a fish, okay, till you're flopping out on land and you can't breathe anymore, okay? That's what it amounts to. So that's my message today. I'm sure that there's some things that I missed here as far as the masses. Things come to me later. Let me think here a minute. Is there anything I missed here with the masses? Well, how about civilization? How about civilization's fall? And in that civilization are masses of people, okay? Masses of people. And there's just so many things. Another thing I can think of, but I'll probably save that for a later time, is the chemtrails that we see in the sky every day. Crisscross patterns of uh, chemicals being sprayed in the sky, aerosoled into the sky. And again, here we go with the masses. Do you have intellect, or do you see things? Do you actually look up in the sky? Do you stop for a minute from looking on your iPod, and do you look up in the sky and see all those things? No, people, those are not jet streams. I mean, jet trails, vapor trails. Those are not vapor trails. I'm a pilot. Those dissipate in about 15 to 20 seconds. So if you're part of the masses, then you're not, if you're a significant part, and most of them don't know, you're not realizing that you're being slowly poisoned. You're not realizing that you don't have to drink Kool-Aid. It's being administered to you from the skies. All you have to do is breathe it in, okay? Or live on the planet, okay? That's all you have to do to be sedated. So they're making sure of it either way, you know. So they got this two-pronged attack, okay? They got the attack from the media, they got the attack from the skies where they're sedating people. It's more than a two-pronged. How about they got stuff in the food, okay? So don't be a part of the masses, or don't be a part of the masses that is sedated. Don't be a part of the mass of people that is doesn't know what's going on. Educate yourself. Pass this video around. This will get some people to thinking, I'm sure. And do I have documentation, or do I have facts to back up everything I say? Well, of course I do. Of course I do. I would never come out here and just spew a bunch of lies, okay, as clickbait, or put something on there. See, you notice I just put the masses. I didn't put any kind of sensational thing that's clickbait, like the sedated masses, or the masses are in trouble, okay, or the mass of humanity is ready to fall, although it is. And it serves two purposes too. I can get by on YouTube because they look for shit like that. They look for stuff that are they look for things that are people that are trying to inform, and people that are trying to awaken. Okay. So anyway, I think that I pretty much touched on a lot of stuff that I wanted to today, and I'm really sorry that people aren't getting in on this stream because I could carry on an interactive conversation here, but I guess again, it's my timing. And the other thing is, it might just be a situation of what they allow out there. I have no idea. Uh, I do have somewhat of an idea about control. But while I'm at it, let me mention my website, rogerthunderhands.com. And let me mention the fact that if you go to that website, you can see some of my books, okay, because I am an award winning author and I do have 3 or 4 books out. And you might be interested in reading some of them. So go there and check that out. And also, you can contact me through there. You can send me a little form, contact me. And also, if you are interested in supporting uh, what I have to say and my work as an author, you can not only order my books, but if you just want to make a donation on there, you can do that. You can become a Patreon uh, subscriber and support me, or you can support me one time on PayPal. So it's up to you. I'd appreciate any help I can get here because this is my purpose. And so I'll just leave it at that. So I'm out of here. This is a live stream, and I've been doing a lot of live streams. So you might want to look for it. I'm out of here. Adios. And you guys have a great day. All right.